we are back. Welcome to my preview and predictions for Game Week 3 in La Liga. Welcome back to the channel for another weekend. If you missed my bonus La Liga prediction for the game on Wednesday, you would have missed that I actually got the prediction spot on, a 1-1 draw between Celta Vigo and Real Betis. So if that's not worth a like on this video, I don't know what is. And if you are going down there to drop a like on this video, and if you are new around here, please do consider subscribing to the channel with notifications turned on. This is just our first video of the weekend. We have got our Premier League predictions coming out for you in an hour's time as well. And if you want to gain access to even more predictions, such as Bundesliga, Serie A, and League Earn, you can hit the join button at the bottom of your screen right now to gain access to those, because those are members only predictions. As for today then, these are the 10 fixtures taking place in La Liga over the course of the weekend. We've got a couple tonight, a few on Saturday, and a few on Sunday. But before we start, I just want to say these fixtures this week are absolutely horrible to call. I can give you genuine reasons for why almost every single team this weekend can get the win in La Liga. I probably say there's only one fixture on there where you could really say with any sort of certainty this is the team that should be winning this match. But as always, I'm going to do my best. So let's get things started with the first game on Friday night between the two sides that finished first and second in La Liga 2 last season, and that is, of course, Elche and Levante. And to be honest, it's been relatively contrasting starts for these sides too so far. Levante have really tried to give it their best in the first couple of weeks. They've had higher XG against Barcelona, which is an incredible stat to suggest. Last week, going 2-0 up, but ultimately succumbing to a 3-2 defeat. That is 2 defeats in a row for them at the start of their season. For Elche, they have really continued their strong defensive approach from La Liga 2 last season into this season, and have managed to pick up 1-1 draws against Atletico Madrid and Real Betis. That is a phenomenal start to the season as far as I'm concerned, against two European sides for the newly promoted side. So coming into this fixture here, I think they're going to be feeling pretty confident. But Levante are a team that have a relatively good history against them. It was a draw away for Elche at Levante, but Levante actually won at this ground last season in La Liga 2. Similar sort of approach. Elche dominating possession, but Levante hitting them on the break and scoring goals on the counter-attack, which is what they've tried to do and have done successfully in La Liga so far. It's just not brought them the results so far. In terms of the team news, there isn't actually any fresh injury or suspension concerns for either side coming into this one. So really, we are just looking at this one on face value. Like I say, I think it's going to be a really tough one to call. The first of many tough ones to call this weekend. And from what I've seen from these two sides so far, honestly, I can't split them right now. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Wouldn't surprise me to see Elche's dominance produce the result, but equally, it wouldn't surprise me to see a repeat of last year where Levante's counter-attacks catch them cold. Really could go either way, so I'm just going to go for a draw. The other game tonight is Valencia taking on Getafe, and what an absolutely unbelievable start for Getafe it has been. I said last week I wasn't confident enough to give them the win against Sevilla because it was just potentially a one-off performance against Celta Vigo on game week 1. But to then go away and back it up again is incredible. What's even more incredible, though, is this is their third away game in a row. They're actually starting the season with back-to-back-to-back away games. That's a horrible situation to be in. But hey, it means they've got a lot of home games later on in the season. For Valencia, it's just 1 point from their opening 2 games, drawing with Sociedad and then losing at Osasuna last week. That said, Gaia was sent off very early for them last week, so that can sort of skew how that result potentially could have gone if they had 11 men on the pitch for the vast majority of the match, which of course they didn't. But fact stands as they are, 1 point for Valencia, 6 points for Getafe to start off the season. So could be a potentially interesting one. In terms of the team news, obviously Gaia is going to be suspended for Valencia. No fresh concerns for Getafe coming into this one. In terms of the head-to-head record, though, it does really show strong favour towards Valencia. They've not actually been able to lose to Getafe in this fixture since 2018, and they won 3-0 here last season. So in my head, I would still say Valencia should be considered the favourites here, and I know I'm kind of going back on what I said last week in regards to Getafe proving themselves that they can go and get another big away win. I'm actually going to go for a 2-1 win to Valencia here. Again, though, do not be surprised if Getafe come away with the result. They've had a fantastic start to the season, but I am still going to go for Valencia in this one. Speaking of surprises, and as we move on to Saturday, our opening game is Alaves taking on Atletico Madrid, where there were no real surprises surrounding Alaves' first two results, a win at home to Levante and a loss away to Real Betis. But for Atletico Madrid, losing away to Espanyol and then drawing at home to promoted Elche is a really worrying start for Diego Simeone's side. And now they are travelling to an Alaves side where they have an incredibly poor record against. It was a 0-0 draw here last season, and the previous two seasons before that, Alaves won 2-0 and 1-0. So this is now the fourth season in a row where Atletico Madrid will be looking to score for the first time at this ground. They are not performing very well on this stadium. They are not performing well at the start of this season. So something's going to have to give at some point. But it is a real worry for them going into this game, as it is the last one before the international break. You've got to figure at some point they're going to put a marker down. But who knows? I think Alaves are more than capable of keeping them out here. In terms of the team news, no fresh concerns for Alaves coming into this one. Also, no fresh concerns for Atletico Madrid, but also no return for the likes of Alex Baena, who has been struggling since match day one. There's also a lot of speculation around a couple of Atletico Madrid players potentially leaving over the next few days. I have no idea if that's sort of having some sort of disruption on the squad right now, but it's just not a good look for them at the moment. And look, don't get me wrong, there is no doubt in my mind that Atletico Madrid should be considered the favourites for this match because on paper, they are a better team than Alaves. But I'm someone that can't look past what I'm seeing in terms of the stats here. Like I've said, poor start to the season for Atletico Madrid. They've not scored on this ground for the past 3 seasons in a row. So to be honest, I don't really see a reason why that's going to change here. I'm not going to give Alaves a goal either, though. I think they are still going to struggle against Atletico, but I'm going to go for a 0-0 draw. The same scoreline it was last year, but we shall see. Like I said at the start, this is a very, very tough week to call. And it doesn't get any easier in our next game because we've got another Real versus Real affair, as it is Oviedo taking on Sociedad. For Oviedo, a rough start to the season sees them both pointless and goalless after their opening 2 matches. Although, to be fair to them, those matches were against Villarreal and Real Madrid, who have started this season incredibly strong. For Real Sociedad, it's arguably that they've done okay so far. They were, in my opinion, lucky to get the draw with Valencia on match day 1. And then they've backed it up with another draw against Espanyol at home last week. But that was after going 2-0 down. So they seem to be pretty slow starters this season, but at least they've had a little bit in them to come back after being behind in both of their opening 2 matches, which is why I do think they should still be considered the favourites coming into this one against Oviedo, who, as we said, are yet to score so far in the La Liga season. In terms of the team news, no fresh concerns for Oviedo, but they've got to try and figure out how to put the ball in the back of the net, so maybe we could see some rotation in the forward line. Speaking of rotation in the forward line, for Sociedad, we could see Oscarsson making his first proper start for them after impressing from the bench last week, coming on and scoring a goal. To be honest, I don't really think there is a world where Oviedo get the win here, but who knows? I would say Sociedad are going to be the favourites coming into this. They obviously have proven they can score goals so far this season. But like I said, Oviedo's first 2 fixtures against Real Madrid, against Villarreal, a real tough start for them. This, on paper, should be an easier game for them. But I'm going to go for Sociedad. I'm going to go for a 1-0 victory to them. Next up, I genuinely think this one on paper is probably a little bit easier to call. We've got bottom of the table Girona taking on 18th place Sevilla. Both sides continuing their poor run of form from last season, certainly in terms of results. However, for me, there is a standout side in this fixture based on the actual performances in-game so far this season. And that is Sevilla, because I think they were unlucky on the opening day to go down to Athletic Bilbao. And I also think they played relatively well last week, despite the fact that they did lose to Getafe. We've already spoken about what a great start Getafe have made. I'm sure the Sevilla fans are disappointed with the 2 losses so far, but I think the performances have been warranting the fact that they will start picking up points. Girona, on the other hand, they have been absolutely woeful, losing 3-1 at home to Vallecano on the opening week and then losing 5-0 against Villarreal last time out, with I believe all 5 goals coming in the first half. I might be wrong, it might have been 4, but it was a hammering. They are bottom of the table for the reason. They are playing absolutely shockingly so far this season. And to make matters even worse for them, one of their midfielders, Herrera, picked up an injury last week. He is absolutely going to be out for this one. The problem is regarding Sevilla is they have a huge mounting injury crisis at the moment. They already had a few first-team players injured coming into the start of the season. And again, they lost a couple on match day 1. And last week, it looks like they've lost Luca Bacchio and Vargas as well. So, Girona fans, there may be some hope for you in regards to the fact that Sevilla just cannot field their strongest possible team for this one. Obviously, Girona will also have Gazzaniga back for this one following his suspension last week after getting sent off on match day 1. But, to be honest, I still think Sevilla have to be considered the favourites here, when you consider the fact that Sevilla also won on this ground last season as well. So I think there is a lot going in favour of Sevilla going into this one. Obviously, Girona do have players available to them. They're going to have people back. Like I said, they're going to have Gazzaniga back. But I don't know. I just think Sevilla's performances will come good for them over the course of the next few weeks. And I think this is a perfect opportunity for them to do it here. So I'm going to go for 2-1 to Sevilla. I believe that was the same score as last season. So watch this space, we shall see, but I'm going to go for Sevilla in this one. Next up, as we move on to the final game of Saturday, this is probably the one game where you would say this is one that should be relatively easy to call. We've got Real Madrid taking on Mallorca. For Real Madrid, it's 2 games, 2 wins, 2 clean sheets for Xabi Alonso's side so far. For Mallorca, they've just had a rough start, let's be honest. The fixtures they've had to put up with, they've had Barcelona on the opening day, then Celta Vigo, and now they've got Real Madrid. It is just a really rough start for them. I don't think it can take anything away from them. They're a decent side on their day. I actually think a draw against Celta Vigo at home isn't a particularly bad result, and I don't think losing 3-0 to Barcelona with 9 men is a particularly bad result either. But now they've got to travel to the Bernabeu. Obviously, they are going to have Miriki and Morlanes back for this game after their red cards against Barcelona. But coming up against a Real Madrid side that looks like they're starting to click under Xabi Alonso. Obviously, question marks regarding what's he going to do with Trent Alexander-Arnold. I know the English media are building that one up quite a bit at the moment. But to be honest, I don't really see this being a game too difficult for Real Madrid. They also did really well against Mallorca last season as well. So for me, this should be a comfortable victory for Real Madrid. They've actually won every single game on this ground against Mallorca since Mallorca's promotion to La Liga a few seasons ago. I'm going to go for a 3-0 victory to Real Madrid. On to Sunday then, and why did we have an easy fixture? We want difficult fixtures, I hear you cry. Well, let me tell you, these next 4 fixtures are definitely going to be much harder to call once again, because we start off Sunday with Celta Vigo taking on Villarreal. Now, to be fair, Celta Vigo have not had the best of starts to this season. They are in 13th place, despite playing 3 matches already this season, losing at home to Getafe, drawing last weekend, and then drawing in midweek against Betis as well. For Villarreal, they are top of the table after their first 2 matches, after absolutely blowing away the 2 sides they have played so far. They're playing some fantastic stuff. They're scoring goals for fun, and they're going to be full of confidence coming up against a Celta Vigo side that really is struggling to put the ball in the back of the net so far this season. That said, they are going to be without one of their starters from the first 2 matches this season, because Jeremy Pino has now signed for Crystal Palace, and he will be obviously now playing for them. So he will not be able to start for Villarreal. So they're going to have to make some sort of change to their starting lineup to accommodate him leaving. For Celta Vigo, we could see some more rotation from them. They didn't pick up any potential injuries against Real Betis on Wednesday night, but they did actually rotate players out of the side for that midweek game. So we could see those players be rotated back in for this one. Again, I can see this being a potential tough one to call. Celta Vigo did win this fixture here 3-0 last season over Villarreal. It was a 4-3 win for Villarreal in the reverse fixture. But I just look at the way Villarreal have started this season, and I do think they're going to come away with yet another victory here. I'd expect this one to be full of goals, but I think more of them in favour of Villarreal. I'm going for a 3-1 victory to them. Next up, it's the other half of Wednesday night's game as Real Betis take on Bilbao. 6th taking on 5th. I think it was 4th and 6th from last season in La Liga. So again, best believe this is a very, very tough game to call once again. Now, it should be noted that Betis have also now played that extra game. It's a win and 2 draws for them. For Bilbao, it is 2 matches that they have won by 1 goal margin so far. So we'll see. I'm not fully convinced by Bilbao's performances the first 2 weeks, but they are starting to click. They've got Sanche back in that midfield. He's overcome his injuries from pre-season, and he came straight back in with the winning goal last weekend. So I would expect him to potentially start this one. For Betis, I think we're going to see some rotation from them again. Like we said in midweek, they changed players like Celta Vigo did. The big news from them, though, is that Pau Lopez, their goalkeeper, has picked up an injury that's going to see him miss this game and potentially a couple of other games following the international break. So reserve keeper is going to be moving in goal for Betis. Could that prove to be the difference in this fixture? No fresh concerns for Atletico coming into this one, but also for Betis. Rubial went off injured against Celta Vigo on Wednesday as well. So Betis potentially a little bit light. Obviously, we all know about Isco's injury as well and a few others. So in my head, that probably just tilts me in favour of Bilbao coming into this one. That said, both matches between these sides were draws last season and have already accurately predicted 2 1-1 draws for Real Betis so far this season. So there's a part of me tempted to go for that again. But no, I do think Bilbao are going to come out on top here. And I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Bilbao. Penultimate game then, and it is Espanyol taking on Osasuna in one of the late games on Sunday. And again, this is one where I feel the best place to start is actually the head-to-head record. Because even though Espanyol have had a great start to the season, their record against Osasuna is absolutely shocking. They have not won home or away to Osasuna since 2017, and they have drawn all of the last 3 games at home to them. So for Osasuna, I think they're going to be feeling pretty confident coming into this one in regards to that. That said, Espanyol, as we've just mentioned, have had a great start to the season, beating Atletico Madrid at home, drawing away to Real Sociedad last time out. Whereas for Osasuna, a 1-0 defeat to Real Madrid was backed up by a 1-0 victory at home last week. So I wouldn't expect there to be an awful lot of goals in this one. I think both sides are relatively defensively solid. It's just going to be a case of who could potentially nick it one way or the other. And to be honest, I think there's grounds for either side to nick it one way or another when it comes to this one. In terms of the team news, there could be a big loss coming into this one for Osasuna as Moy Gomez picked up an injury really late on last week. And as things stand, it's unclear whether or not he's going to be back for this one. No concerns in the Espanyol squad at all. No injuries, no suspensions in their entire squad. So they're coming into this probably as favourites, given how the first 2 couple of weeks have gone. But like I said, just be warned about that head-to-head record. I'm going to go for the streak to end, though, and I'm going to go for a 1-0 victory to Espanyol, which leaves our final game of the La Liga weekend between Rayo Vallecano and Barcelona, who, let's be honest, have started very, very well. 2 wins for them, although they did have to come from behind to beat Levante last week from 2-0 down to 3-2 victors. For Vallecano, it's not been a particularly poor start to the season. They obviously got the away win against Girona on match day 1, but came up just a little bit short against Bilbao last time out. This is their first home game in La Liga for them this season. And of course, they got a massive 4-0 victory in the Conference League last night, 5-0 in aggregate, seeing them into the league phase of the Conference League for them this season. In that game, they did make basically a full squad rotation, so key players were rested, as they did last week before the Bilbao game, although they did have to bring a few of their star players on to guarantee the result in the second half, which is obviously exactly what they did. That said, though, no fresh concerns coming out of last night's game ahead of this one on Sunday. For Barcelona, also no fresh concerns, but the big news for them is star striker Robert Lewandowski is back. He came on last week. He's in line to start this one, although, that said, Ferran Torres is 2 goals from 2 games and could push Lewandowski back down to the bench, but I would fully expect the Polish international to come back into the side for this one. To be fair, Barcelona have actually only won 1 of the last 4 games here, but that one was last season in a 2-1 victory. Most matches between these two sides do tend to be close though, but the vast majority of them, as you'd expect, go in favour of Barcelona. With the way Vallecano have started the season, it absolutely would not surprise me to see them get a result here, but I still have to go for the reigning champions. They've won their first 2 games. I'm going to go for them to make it 3 out of 3, and I'm going for a 3-2 victory to Barcelona. That rounds off what, like I said at the start, is an incredibly, incredibly tough week of La Liga games to call. You know my rule, unless I've gone for a 2-goal winning margin, I'm not particularly confident in regards to an actual result here. But that's what I think. Let's see what you guys have been saying over the course of the last few days, as these are your community predictions for this La Liga weekend. To be honest, if you look at the percentages, you're kind of in agreement with me that the vast majority of these are hard to call. I think the standout ones are Atletico with an 84% chance based on what you guys have been saying. A lot of you really do think Madrid are going to end their losing streak here. But other than that, I mean, you can see out there, there's some 30-30-30s on multiple fixtures there. So really, really tough to call. That's what you guys are saying. And of course, we'll go back to my ones there. That's what I think is going to happen in this La Liga weekend. Before we go, if you haven't done so already, please do consider dropping a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Let me know all of your thoughts down in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching. As always, I'll be back in just a couple of minutes' time because Premier League predictions are out at the top of the next hour. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you there.